Have you ever felt that something was missing when receiving Holy Communion? That even though you approached with faith, the experience wasn't as profound as it could be? You walked back to your pew, made the sign of the cross, but in your heart, it seemed that this sacred encounter could have been deeper, as if you had received something immensely holy, but didn't know what to do with it. You're not alone. Many devout souls spend years attending Mass, receiving communion every Sunday, some even daily, but never truly understanding the magnitude and delicacy of that moment when God enters us. And here's the crucial point. Padre Pio knew this. Padre Pio said that at the moment of Holy Communion, all of heaven opens, angels kneel in silence, and Jesus gives himself completely to the soul who receives him. But there's a detail that many ignore. How you welcome Jesus in that instant determines the depth of grace you receive. It's not enough to simply say, Amen. It's not enough to repeat automatic prayers. According to Padre Pio, you need to say something with a completely open and surrendered heart. You need to speak as someone who recognizes they're receiving the King of the universe, the living God, the crucified and risen Savior. And this is where we enter the most touching teaching of this great saint, the words we should say to the Eucharistic Jesus at the moment of communion. If you believe in Padre Pio's wisdom, write in the comments, Jesus, transform my communion. Your comment will help spread this message to many souls who need to hear it today. Padre Pio himself warned, many receive Jesus as if receiving a sacred object, but he doesn't want to be an object. He wants to be a beloved. In many parishes, we see faithful who receive communion with reverence, but not with intimacy. The gesture is solemn, the head bows, the gaze turns to the altar, but the heart remains locked. Because deep down, the soul still hasn't understood that this small piece of white bread is Jesus himself, with eyes that see you, a heart that listens to you, love that waits for you. Dear friends, if you've been touched by what you've heard so far and wish to deepen your spiritual journey with Padre Pio, we have something special for you. Our ebook, The Spiritual Secrets of St. Padre Pio, contains powerful prayers, reflections based on his teachings, and practical advice to strengthen your spirituality. This resource will help you develop a more intimate relationship with Christ through the wisdom of Padre Pio. It includes rare insights into his mystical experiences and guidance on how to apply his spiritual practices in your everyday life. Click on the link pinned in the comments to discover how this content can transform your spiritual journey. This knowledge has already changed the lives of thousands of faithful people who now experience communion with renewed hearts. Now let's continue with our exploration of Padre Pio's profound teaching about the Holy Communion. And the silent error is this: saying nothing, or speaking with coldness, or speaking out of obligation, as if Jesus were merely part of a ritual. But Padre Pio lived the opposite. He melted before the host. He wept, trembled, became silent, and when he spoke as one standing before God himself. Many of us fall into this pattern without realizing it. We approach the altar focused on the external, the line moving forward, the procedure of receiving, the proper responses, while forgetting the extraordinary reality taking place. This routine approach diminishes what should be the most transformative moment of our spiritual lives. Think about this. The God who created galaxies, who breathed life into existence, who formed your soul with infinite care. This same God makes himself small enough to enter you, and yet how often do we respond with distracted hearts? Consider Maria, a devoted parishioner who attended daily Mass for 20 years. I would receive communion faithfully, she shares, but one day, after hearing about Padre Pio's approach, I realized I had been treating this sacred moment like a transaction instead of an encounter. When I finally began speaking to Jesus with my heart during communion, everything changed. I felt his presence in a way I never had before. Padre Pio often reminded his spiritual children that Jesus comes to us not as a distant deity, but as a lover seeking intimacy. But the problem, he would say, is not that Jesus doesn't speak to souls during communion. The problem is that souls don't listen. It's reported that once a brother at the monastery asked Padre Pio, "Father, what do you say to Jesus after receiving communion?" He smiled humbly and answered, "I say to him, stay with me, Lord. Don't leave me, for if you leave, I am lost." Simple, perhaps, but profoundly true. This phrase summarizes the complete dependence of a soul who loves Jesus above all else. It's the cry of someone who knows that Christ's presence is the only sustenance to prevent falling, sinning, or dying spiritually. And after this, Padre Pio would remain silent, a silence that lasted long minutes, sometimes hours, because he said, after communion, the soul needs to listen and not just speak. Padre Pio didn't give us a fixed manual of words. He gave us a spiritual key. At the moment of communion, speak to Jesus as you would speak to the love of your life, with truth, with tears if necessary, with the desire not to let him depart. Many of us were never taught this approach. We learned prayers and postures, but perhaps no one showed us how to open our hearts at this crucial moment. We were told what to do, but not how to love. We learned the ritual, but missed the relationship. During the Mass, when the priest holds up the host and says, "The body of Christ," our Amen isn't just affirming a theological truth. It's saying, yes, I believe. Yes, I receive. Yes, I surrender. But that single word contains an ocean of meaning that should continue in our hearts as we receive the Eucharist. What happens in that silent moment after receiving? For many, it's a rushed experience. Thoughts wander to the day ahead, to problems at home, to the person singing off-key in the choir. But Padre Pio teaches us that this is precisely when we should be most present, most awake, most alive to the divine presence within us. The saints understood that communion is not just a sacred moment, it's a sacred encounter. Sainte Thérèse of Lisieux described it as heart speaking to heart. Saint Augustine called it the kiss of Christ, and Padre Pio experienced it as nothing less than heaven touching earth. So what are we missing when we receive without this awareness? What graces remain unopened? What healing unclaimed? What transformation unrealized? Simply because we didn't know how to speak to the King who humbled himself to become our bread. This is why the words we speak in that moment matter so profoundly. They are not magic formulas, but rather the expression of a heart that recognizes the magnitude of the gift it has received. They are the beginning of a conversation that can change everything, and it's this conversation that Padre Pio will now teach us through his profound example. There are testimonies from people who attended Mass celebrated by Padre Pio, who said it was as if heaven had descended upon the altar. And do you know why? Because he didn't receive communion out of obligation. He lived that moment as if it were the only one in his life, as if his salvation depended on it. And it did. Have you ever thought about this? That brief moment, when the priest gives you the host and you place it in your mouth or receive it in your hand, could be the instant that changes the course of your soul. That there is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ as the Church teaches us, that there hides the one who died for you, rose for you, and now enters your body with the same love as on the cross. This is why the words at this moment cannot be hollow, nor empty, nor automatic. Padre Pio would often repeat a short and powerful prayer in the silence after communion. Jesus, may I be one with you, and may nothing separate me from you. This prayer, according to accounts from his spiritual children, came from an inner inspiration that the saint said he had received in his visions. It's a prayer of union, of fusion of hearts. Like saying, Lord, if you are in me, may everything in me be yours. And here is the secret. It's not the number of words that changes your communion. It's the truth with which you say them. It's the humility, the surrender, the spiritual hunger with which you welcome Jesus. When Padre Pio celebrated Mass, witnesses report that something extraordinary happened. His face would transform. Sometimes he would tremble or weep. The Mass could last hours because he experienced each moment with such intensity, especially the moment of communion. For him, time seemed to stand still when Jesus entered his heart. One priest who lived with Padre Pio for many years shared this. When Padre Pio received the Eucharist, his face would radiate light. It wasn't just devotion. It was as if he could actually see Christ. And in those moments, he spoke to Jesus not as a distant God, but as his dearest friend, his most beloved companion. What did Padre Pio say in those sacred moments? Besides his famous prayer, "Stay with me, Lord," he taught his spiritual children to speak to Jesus with simplicity and truth. He suggested phrases like, "Jesus, I love you, but teach me to love you more. Stay with me, Lord, even if I forget you tomorrow. Today, I receive you as never before. Transform my heart. Lord, enter me and break everything that doesn't belong to you. Jesus, I am not worthy, but I need you as the air I breathe." These phrases aren't in a book. They're in the soul that has opened itself to love. And that's what Padre Pio lived in every Mass. Many Catholics have never been taught to speak to Jesus during communion. Perhaps they were taught to recite formal prayers, but not how to have a heart-to-heart conversation with the living God who has just entered them. This is where Padre Pio's teaching becomes revolutionary. He shows us that communion is not primarily about ritual, but relationship. Imagine if you invited someone you deeply love into your home, opened the door, and then immediately turned your back and started doing other things. How would they feel? Yet this is often how we treat Jesus in communion. We open the door of our mouth to receive him, and then immediately turn our thoughts elsewhere. Padre Pio would say, when you have received Jesus, it is as if your heart has become a living tabernacle. Would you walk away from a tabernacle without saying anything to the one who dwells there? The saints, throughout history, have understood this profound reality. Saint Thérèse of Lisieux spoke of communion as a fusion of her heart with Christ's. St. Catherine of Siena described it as a marriage between the soul and God, and Padre Pio experienced it as nothing less than heaven touching earth. But here's what makes Padre Pio's teaching so accessible to us. He doesn't demand mystical experiences or extraordinary phenomena. He simply asks us to speak from the heart, to acknowledge the miracle that is happening, to welcome Jesus not as a ritual object, but as a living person who loves us. This doesn't require theological education or spiritual expertise. It requires only honesty and openness. It requires recognizing who it is we are receiving and responding with love. And when we do this, when we finally break through the barrier of routine and truly speak to Jesus in communion, something begins to change. Not just in that moment, but in our entire lives. Because a heart that has learned to welcome Christ fully in communion will begin to recognize his presence everywhere else. This is the transformation that Padre Pio wants for each of us. And it begins with those simple, heartfelt words we speak when Jesus comes to us in the Eucharist. Padre Pio strongly emphasized three things before communion. Frequent confession. A clean soul attracts grace, he would say. This is why Padre Pio spent countless hours in the confessional, sometimes up to 16 hours a day. He understood that to receive Christ worthily, we must first be cleansed of sin. Not because Jesus rejects sinners, but because our sins create barriers that prevent us from fully experiencing his presence. When we approach communion with unconfessed serious sins, it's like inviting someone into a home filled with clutter and filth. Yes, they can enter, but they cannot move freely or be fully welcomed. Confession clears the space of our hearts, making room for Jesus to dwell fully within us. Padre Pio advised his spiritual children to confess regularly, ideally once a week, but at minimum once a month. He would often tell them, "The soul that passes through the cleansing waters of confession shines more brightly in God's eyes than the sun itself." Prayer before Mass. Padre Pio said that those who prepare well receive greater graces. He would arrive at the chapel hours before Mass to prepare his heart. While we may not have hours, we can still set aside some time, even just a few minutes, to prepare ourselves. This preparation isn't about reciting a specific prayer, though traditional prayers before communion can be helpful. Rather, it's about turning our hearts toward what is about to happen. It's about awakening our spiritual hunger and thirst. Try this simple practice. Before Mass begins, close your eyes and silently say, "Lord, prepare my heart to receive you. Help me to recognize your presence and to welcome you with love." This brief moment of intention can completely transform your experience of the Eucharist. Padre Pio would also encourage us to read the scripture readings before Mass if possible. Understanding the Word of God prepares our minds and hearts to receive the Word made flesh in the Eucharist. Silence and recollection after communion. Do not rush out of church. Stay. Listen. Jesus is still within you. Padre Pio taught that the moments after receiving communion are among the most precious in our spiritual lives. This is when Jesus is physically present within us in a unique way. Many people make the mistake of thinking that communion ends when they return to their seat. But for Padre Pio, that was just the beginning of the most intimate encounter with Christ. He recommended at least 10 to 15 minutes in silence, in gratitude, listening to what God has to say to us. In today's busy world, this might seem impossible. But even if the Mass ends and you must leave, try to maintain an inner silence and awareness as you go about your day. Remember, Jesus is still with you. The grace of communion continues to work within you long after the host has been consumed. One spiritual director, inspired by Padre Pio, suggested this practice. After receiving communion, imagine your heart as a small chapel where Jesus sits on a throne. Kneel before him in this interior chapel and simply say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." Then remain in silence, allowing him to speak to your heart. These three practices, confession, prayer before Mass, and silence after communion, formed the foundation of Padre Pio's Eucharistic spirituality. They create the perfect conditions for a transformative encounter with Christ. But there's something important to understand. These practices aren't meant to be burdensome obligations. They're gifts, opportunities to open ourselves more fully to the immense love God offers us in the Eucharist. As Padre Pio would say, these aren't rules to follow. They're keys that unlock treasures. Perhaps you haven't thought much about how you approach communion. Perhaps your experiences have been rushed, distracted, routine. But today, Jesus offers you a new opportunity, and Padre Pio shows you a new path. Imagine if every communion from now on became a true encounter with the living God. Imagine if those brief moments transformed not just your Sunday, but your entire life. This is what Padre Pio experienced and what he wants for each of us. As we prepare to conclude, let's look at how we can implement these teachings the very next time we receive Jesus in the Eucharist. So the next time you approach the altar, do so with a heart full of faith and say as you receive Jesus, "My Lord and my God, I don't deserve you, but I desperately need you. Enter, take control, and never leave." Say this with closed eyes, with an open soul, with a burning heart, and afterward be silent, because in that moment, God Himself will be speaking to you from within. Imagine what would happen if you approached communion this way tomorrow, not as a ritual you've performed countless times, but as if it were your first communion, your last communion, your only communion. Elizabeth, a woman who began applying Padre Pio's teachings, shares, "For decades, I received communion mechanically. Then I learned to speak to Jesus from my heart at that sacred moment. Within weeks, I noticed a profound change. My anxieties diminished, my capacity for love expanded. It wasn't just my prayer life that transformed, it was my entire life. All because I started treating Jesus in the Eucharist as a living person rather than a sacred symbol." This transformation is available to each of us. It doesn't require extraordinary holiness or deep theological knowledge. It requires only sincerity and openness, a willingness to step beyond routine into relationship. Padre Pio believed that a single communion, received with perfect love, could transform a soul more profoundly than years of spiritual exercises. He would often tell his spiritual children, "One moment of true union with Jesus in the Eucharist is worth more than all the treasures of the world." But what exactly changes when we begin to communicate with Jesus in this intimate way during communion? According to Padre Pio, everything changes, slowly but surely. Our resistance to grace diminishes, our spiritual blindness begins to heal, our capacity for divine love expands, and most importantly, we begin to recognize Christ's presence, not just in the Eucharist, but everywhere in our lives. The challenge, of course, is consistency. It's easy to have one profound communion experience and then fall back into old habits. This is why Padre Pio encouraged his spiritual children to make a firm resolution: never receive Christ routinely again. To help with this, he suggested keeping a small notebook where you write one sentence after each Mass, a brief reflection on how you spoke to Jesus during communion that day. As we conclude, I invite you to make this teaching practical. At your next Mass, before approaching the altar, quietly say to yourself, "This is not just bread. This is Jesus, who loves me and gave his life for me. I will speak to him heart to heart." Then when you receive the host, use one of the phrases we've discussed, or speak to Jesus in your own words. Afterward, remain in silence for at least a few moments, listening more than speaking. This small change in approach can begin a profound transformation in your spiritual life. As Padre Pio promised, the soul that learns to converse with Jesus in communion will never be the same. If this message has touched your heart today, I invite you to share it with others. Write in the comments, "I will receive Jesus with a new heart," and share this video with someone who might need this teaching. Remember that your support allows us to continue spreading these spiritual treasures. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and consider becoming a member of our spiritual family. Let me leave you with Padre Pio's own words. When you approach the tabernacle, remember that he has been waiting for you for 20 centuries. Jesus waits for you with the same longing today. He waits not just to be received, but to be welcomed. Not just to be adored, but to be loved. Not just to be present in your body, but to transform your soul. May your next communion be the beginning of a new journey, a journey of deeper intimacy with Christ, inspired by the profound example of Saint Padre Pio. And may the words you speak in that sacred moment open your heart to receive all the grace that Jesus longs to give you. Go in peace, knowing that the next time you receive communion, heaven itself will be watching, angels will be adoring, and Jesus will be listening for the words of your heart. Have you ever wondered why, despite all your efforts, achieving prosperity and living in peace seems impossible? If you're struggling with this question, you're not alone. Today, I'm going to share with you 5 crucial warnings from Padre Pio that could change your life forever. If you believe in Padre Pio's wisdom, write "I trust" in the comments below. In our fast-paced world, where spiritual traps lurk around every corner, understanding these 5 warnings has become more critical than ever. Padre Pio, one of the most remarkable spiritual guides of our faith, revealed 5 things we should never accept in our lives, as they open doors to both spiritual and material poverty. What you're about to hear isn't just advice. It's a wake-up call that could unlock the prosperity and peace you've been seeking. These revelations from Padre Pio, who had an extraordinary connection with God, expose what might be secretly stealing your abundance without you even realizing it. You see, in today's world where everything seems more confusing and challenging than ever, seemingly innocent decisions could be blocking the blessings meant for your life. Padre Pio's wisdom becomes even more relevant as we navigate these uncertain times. His teachings offer a beacon of hope and practical guidance for those seeking true prosperity. Think about it. How many times have you felt stuck, wondering why your efforts aren't bearing fruit? How often have you questioned why others seem to prosper while you struggle? These questions troubled many who sought Padre Pio's counsel, and his answers were both surprising and transformative. Before I reveal these 5 crucial warnings, I want you to understand something important. This message isn't just about material prosperity. It's about achieving a complete state of well-being in your finances, relationships, and spiritual life. Padre Pio understood that true prosperity comes when we align ourselves with God's will and protect ourselves from harmful influences. The insights you're about to discover have helped countless people transform their lives. Many who followed these teachings found themselves breaking free from cycles of lack and limitation. They discovered that by avoiding these 5 things, they could finally experience the abundance they were meant to have. Are you ready to discover what these 5 warnings are? Are you prepared to learn what might be secretly blocking your blessings? In the next few minutes, I'll share each of these warnings in detail, along with practical examples and guidance on how to apply them in your daily life. Remember, what sets these teachings apart is that they come from someone who dedicated his life to helping others find their path to true prosperity. Padre Pio's insights weren't just theoretical. They were born from years of spiritual wisdom and practical experience in guiding countless souls. If you're watching this video, it's not by chance. Perhaps you've been seeking answers, looking for guidance on how to improve your life. These 5 warnings from Padre Pio could be exactly what you need to hear today. Stay with me as we explore each one, and prepare yourself for revelations that could transform your understanding of prosperity and spiritual protection. Let's begin with Padre Pio's first and most crucial warning. Never accept objects or gifts with negative spiritual energy. This warning might sound simple, but its impact on your life can be profound. I've seen countless cases where seemingly innocent objects became gateways to unexpected hardships. Consider what happened in a household where financial problems began after receiving an antique mirror. The family experienced unexplained losses, and their once peaceful home became filled with tension. Only after removing the mirror did their situation improve. Padre Pio taught that objects can carry the energy of their previous owners, affecting not just our peace, but our prosperity as well. You might be wondering, how can I identify these harmful objects? Padre Pio provided 3 clear signs to watch for. First, if you feel unexplained unease around certain items. Second, if you notice changes in your home's atmosphere after bringing in new objects. Third, if these items are connected to painful memories or difficult relationships. Look around your home right now. Are there objects that make you feel uncomfortable? Perhaps gifts from people who wished you harm, or items connected to painful past experiences. These might be the very things blocking your blessings. Padre Pio emphasized that our homes should be sanctuaries of peace, not storage spaces for negative energy. This principle extends beyond just old or antique items. Even new objects, if given with negative intentions, can affect our lives. Padre Pio warned specifically about accepting gifts from people who harbor jealousy or ill will towards us. He taught that these objects could become conduits for negative influences, affecting our decisions and blocking our path to prosperity. Let me share an observation from years of studying Padre Pio's teachings. When people cleared their homes of spiritually charged objects, they often experienced immediate positive changes. Their businesses improved, relationships healed, and opportunities seemed to appear from nowhere. It's as if removing these items lifted an invisible barrier to their blessings. But here's the key. It's not about becoming paranoid about every object in your home. Instead, Padre Pio advocated for spiritual discernment. He suggested a simple practice. Spend time in prayer before accepting significant gifts or bringing new items into your home. Trust your intuition. It's often God's way of protecting you. Before we move to the second warning, I want to teach you a practical exercise Padre Pio recommended. Take a moment each morning to observe how different objects in your home make you feel. If something consistently brings negative feelings or memories, consider removing it. This simple practice can create space for new blessings in your life. Remember, protecting your spiritual space isn't about fear, it's about wisdom. Padre Pio understood that our material world and spiritual well-being are deeply connected. By being mindful of what we allow into our physical space, we are actually protecting our spiritual prosperity. This first warning might seem unconventional in today's world, where we're taught to accumulate more things. But Padre Pio's wisdom reminds us that quality of life isn't measured by what we own, but by the peace and prosperity we experience. Sometimes, letting go of certain objects is the first step toward the abundance God has planned for us. The second warning from Padre Pio is critical. Never accept advice from people without spiritual foundation. In today's world, where everyone claims to be an expert, this wisdom is more important than ever. Padre Pio observed that following misguided advice could lead us away from true prosperity. Think about the people you turn to for guidance. Are their lives aligned with spiritual principle? Do their actions reflect genuine wisdom? Padre Pio emphasized that not all advice, even when well-intentioned, comes from a place of true understanding. He saw many cases where following worldly counsel led people astray from their path to prosperity. Let me share something powerful I've learned from studying Padre Pio's teachings. A successful business owner once sought his guidance after nearly losing everything. Despite having many advisors, his business was failing. Padre Pio revealed the root cause. He was surrounding himself with people who only valued material success, ignoring spiritual principles. After changing his advisors and aligning his business with spiritual values, his prosperity returned. Padre Pio provided 3 key questions to ask before accepting anyone's advice. Does this person prioritize spiritual values in their own life? Have their decisions brought lasting peace and prosperity? Do their words align with God's teachings? These simple questions can protect you from advice that might seem good on the surface, but lacks spiritual foundation. But here's what many people misunderstand about this warning. It's not about rejecting all worldly wisdom. Instead, Padre Pio taught us to filter advice through spiritual discernment. He believed that true prosperity comes when practical wisdom aligns with spiritual truth. Before I continue sharing these important teachings from Padre Pio about protecting your prosperity, I want to invite you to become part of this spiritual family. If these messages of protection and wisdom are touching your heart, you can support this space by becoming a channel member. Also, if this message is helping your life, don't forget to leave your thank you in the comments below. Now let's continue with these important revelations. Consider the impact of misguided advice in your own life. Have you ever followed someone's guidance only to feel a deep sense of unease? Padre Pio taught that this discomfort is often the Holy Spirit warning us that something isn't right. Learning to recognize and honor these spiritual promptings is crucial for protecting your prosperity. Here's a practical application of this teaching. Before making important decisions, take time for prayer and reflection. Padre Pio recommended creating a circle of spiritually minded advisors who can offer guidance aligned with God's will. This doesn't mean these people need to be religious leaders. They simply need to demonstrate wisdom that goes beyond material success. Remember, prosperity isn't just about financial success. Padre Pio saw true prosperity as a state of complete well-being, spiritual, emotional, and material. When we accept advice only focused on material gain, we risk compromising our spiritual peace and true abundance. Let me share a powerful practice Padre Pio suggested. Whenever you receive advice, pause and ask yourself, will following this guidance bring me closer to or further from God's plan for my life? This simple question can save you from countless missteps and protect your path to true prosperity. The third warning from Padre Pio touches the core of our well-being. Never accept proposals that compromise your inner peace. In a world that constantly pushes us to sacrifice our peace for success, This teaching becomes increasingly valuable. Let me explain why this warning is crucial for your prosperity. Padre Pio witnessed many people trading their peace for promises of quick success. He observed how a promising career opportunity could become a source of constant anxiety, or how a lucrative business deal could rob someone of their sleep and tranquility. He firmly believed that any gain achieved at the cost of inner peace was actually a loss. Consider this scenario that often came to Padre Pio's attention. A person accepts a high-paying position that requires them to compromise their values or sacrifice their prayer time. Initially, the financial benefits seem worth it. However, as weeks pass, they notice their energy depleting, their relationships suffering, and ironically, their ability to enjoy their increased income diminishing. Padre Pio provided 3 clear signs that a proposal might compromise your peace. First, if it creates persistent anxiety or unease. Second, if it requires you to sacrifice your prayer or reflection time. Third, if it forces you to act against your conscience. These signs are like spiritual traffic lights, warning us to stop and reconsider our choices. Let me share a profound insight from Padre Pio's teachings. True prosperity flows naturally when we maintain our inner peace. It's like a garden. When the soil is healthy and well tended, plants grow naturally. Similarly, when we protect our inner peace, opportunities and blessings find their way to us without forcing or compromising. This isn't just spiritual theory, it's practical wisdom for modern life. Think about times when you've made decisions in a state of inner turmoil versus times when you've acted from a place of peace. Which decisions brought better results? Padre Pio observed that choices made in peace, even if they seem less profitable initially, often lead to greater long-term prosperity. Here's a powerful practice Padre Pio recommended. Before accepting any proposal, take time to observe how it affects your inner state. Does it bring peace or disturbance? Does it align with your values? Does it allow you to maintain your spiritual practices? These questions can protect you from choices that might seem profitable but actually cost you your peace. Let me share something particularly important about this teaching. Some people misinterpret it as avoiding all challenging situations. That's not what Padre Pio meant. He taught that there's a difference between the temporary discomfort of growth and the persistent disturbance of a wrong choice. True opportunities, even challenging ones, should ultimately deepen your peace, not diminish it. This brings us to a practical aspect of protecting your peace. Padre Pio suggested creating what he called peace boundaries, clear limits on what you will and won't accept in your life. For example, not checking work emails during prayer time, or not accepting projects that require dishonesty, no matter how profitable they might seem. Remember, protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's essential for serving others effectively. Padre Pio often said that a person at peace becomes a source of peace for others. By maintaining your inner tranquility, you're not just benefiting yourself. You're creating an environment where others can thrive too. Padre Pio's 4th warning is perhaps the most overlooked yet powerful. Never allow relationships that drain your spiritual energy. This warning addresses a subtle but significant threat to your prosperity. People who deplete your spiritual strength and block your blessings. In his years of spiritual guidance, Padre Pio noticed how certain relationships could act like invisible anchors, holding people back from their true potential. He saw that some connections, even when they appeared beneficial on the surface, were actually blocking the flow of blessings in people's lives. Consider what happens when you spend time with someone who constantly complains or criticizes. You might notice feeling tired, discouraged, or doubtful afterward. Padre Pio explained that this isn't just emotional fatigue, it's a real drain on your spiritual energy, which directly affects your ability to attract and maintain prosperity. There's a profound connection between the company we keep and our prosperity. A business partnership might look promising on paper, but if your partner's negative energy constantly drains you, success will remain elusive. Padre Pio taught that true prosperity flows more easily when we're surrounded by people who uplift our spirit, not those who deplete it. Here's a practical way to identify spiritually draining relationships. Pay attention to how you feel after interactions. Do you feel energized and inspired, or exhausted and doubtful? Do your faith and hope grow stronger or weaker? These feelings are important indicators that Padre Pio urged us to notice. Let me share an important observation from his teachings. Sometimes the most draining relationships are with people closest to us. This makes setting boundaries particularly challenging. However, Padre Pio emphasized that protecting your spiritual energy isn't selfish. It's essential for maintaining the strength to help others effectively. This brings us to a crucial point about managing these relationships. Padre Pio didn't advocate for completely cutting people off, unless absolutely necessary. Instead, he suggested creating healthy boundaries. This might mean limiting time spent with certain people, being mindful of what you share with them, or ensuring you have time to recharge after difficult interactions. Think about your current relationships. Are there people in your life who consistently leave you feeling drained? Do certain interactions seem to coincide with periods of struggle or lack? Padre Pio taught that recognizing these patterns is the first step toward protecting your prosperity. Here's a practical exercise Padre Pio recommended. Create a relationship inventory. List the people you interact with regularly and note how each interaction affects your energy, faith, and peace. This awareness can help you make wise decisions about where to invest your time and energy. Remember, this teaching isn't about judgment or criticism. It's about stewardship, being a good steward of the spiritual energy God has given you. When you protect yourself from draining relationships, you're better equipped to fulfill your purpose and help others effectively. The fifth and final warning from Padre Pio holds a powerful truth. Never accept commitments based on pride and vanity. This teaching cuts to the heart of what often blocks our true prosperity, our own ego. Padre Pio observed countless cases where people's pursuit of status and recognition led them away from genuine abundance. He saw how the desire to impress others or maintain appearances could trap people in cycles of spiritual and material poverty. Consider the businessman who took on prestigious positions merely for status, or the person who lives beyond their means to maintain a certain image. Padre Pio noted that these ego-driven choices often lead to eventual downfall, as they're built on a foundation of pride rather than authentic purpose. Here's what Padre Pio taught about recognizing pride-based commitments. First, examine your motivations honestly. Are you accepting responsibilities to serve others and grow, or to feed your ego? Second, notice if you're making decisions based on what others will think, rather than what feels right in your heart. The remedy, according to Padre Pio, lies in humility and authenticity. Before accepting any commitment, ask yourself, am I doing this to please God and serve others, or am I seeking recognition and praise? This simple question can protect you from commitments that might look impressive, but ultimately drain your true prosperity. Let me share a practical method Padre Pio suggested for making decisions free from pride. Take a moment of quiet reflection before any significant commitment. Imagine making the choice without anyone knowing about it. Would you still do it? Your honest answer reveals whether your motivation comes from authentic purpose or pride. Before I share our closing thoughts about these 5 crucial warnings from Padre Pio, I want to invite you who have stayed with us to leave a thank you below this video if these teachings have touched your heart. This simple gesture of gratitude helps more families receive these valuable revelations. And if you wish to continue receiving more messages of protection and wisdom, become a member of this space of connection and faith. Together, we can create a community where peace and harmony become a reality in every home. Let's review these 5 essential warnings from Padre Pio that can transform your life. First, protect yourself from objects carrying negative energy. They can secretly block your blessings. Second, be selective about whose advice you follow, ensuring it comes from those with spiritual wisdom. Third, Never compromise your inner peace for temporary gains. Fourth, guard yourself from relationships that drain your spiritual energy. Fifth, avoid commitments rooted in pride and vanity. Padre Pio left us a practical method for implementing these teachings. Each morning, take a moment to reflect on 3 questions. What am I allowing into my life today? Who am I allowing to influence my decisions? What are my true motivations for today's choices? These 5 warnings aren't just restrictions. They're keys to unlocking the prosperity God intends for you. By following them, you create space for true blessings to flow into your life. Remember, protecting yourself from these 5 things isn't about fear. It's about wisdom and discernment. Consider starting today by examining your environment, relationships, and commitments. Which of these warnings resonates most with your current situation? Take action on what you've learned. Remove what needs to be removed. Strengthen what needs to be strengthened. The power to change your life lies in the choices you make today. These teachings from Padre Pio offer a clear path to true prosperity, one that balances material success with spiritual well-being. Share this message with those you care about, as these warnings could be the key someone else needs. If these revelations from Padre Pio about protecting your spiritual and material prosperity have touched your heart, I invite you to share a thank you below this video. Your gratitude helps spread these valuable teachings to more families seeking guidance. Consider becoming a member of our spiritual family to receive more wisdom and protection messages. Together, we can build a community where peace and abundance flourish in every home. Imagine this: you're deep in prayer, each Hail Mary flowing from your lips like a whisper from the heart, when suddenly, snap, your rosary breaks in your hand. The beads scatter across the floor, and in that moment, a chill runs down your spine. Is this a sign? Should you throw away this broken rosary? Or is there something deeper happening, something Padre Pio understood that most of us miss? Today, we're diving deep into one of the most overlooked yet profound questions many Catholics face: what to do when your rosary breaks. The answer will not only surprise you, but might completely transform your relationship with prayer and faith itself. Padre Pio, that extraordinary saint who bore the wounds of Christ, once said something remarkable about the rosary. He called it his weapon, not just a string of beads, but a powerful instrument in the spiritual battle we all face. What would such a warrior do when his weapon broke? The answer holds a secret that few understand. If you've ever experienced your rosary breaking during prayer, type in the comments, "Padre Pio, teach me to cherish this treasure." Your comment will help spread this message to others who need to hear it. Many believe a broken rosary is bad luck, a sign of divine displeasure, or simply the end of that particular devotional object. But what if I told you that Padre Pio saw something entirely different in this common occurrence? Something that points to a spiritual reality few of us recognize. Stay with me until the end, because the final revelation about broken rosaries might completely change how you view your relationship with God and the powerful prayers you offer. This isn't just about a devotional object, it's about understanding the very nature of faith itself. The rosary isn't merely a string of beads. In the hands of Padre Pio, it was something far more profound. "The rosary is my weapon," he would declare with unwavering conviction. Not a weapon of destruction, but one of protection, healing, and peace. Each bead, each prayer becoming a spiritual bullet against the forces of darkness that surround us daily. Think of your rosary as a soldier thinks of his sword in battle. When the most intense fighting occurs, that's when the weapon shows signs of wear. The scratches and dents aren't signs of failure, they're medals of honor, proof of faithful service in the most challenging moments of spiritual warfare. Padre Pio understood this perhaps better than anyone. Throughout his life, he faced extraordinary spiritual battles, yet he remained steadfast in his devotion to the rosary. He would pray it continuously, sometimes completing 15 or more rosaries in a single day. For him, it wasn't a ritual of repetition, but a lifeline to heaven. What happens in the spiritual realm when we pray the Rosary? Each Hail Mary rises like incense before the throne of God. Each decade forms a crown of roses for Our Lady. The beads passing through our fingers become a tangible connection between heaven and earth, between our struggling hearts and divine mercy. I remember meeting Maria, a woman whose faith had been transformed through the Rosary. For years, she had abandoned her Catholic roots, wandering through various spiritual practices, seeking peace. One day, she found her grandmother's old, worn rosary in a drawer. Though she barely remembered how to pray it, something moved her to try. That night, she told me, I felt like I had come home after being lost for decades. The physical rosary itself carries weight beyond its simple components. Blessed and set apart for holy purpose, it becomes what the Church calls a sacramental, an object that disposes us to receive grace. It's not magical, but it is powerful, a channel through which God's love flows when approached with sincere faith. So what happens when this sacred instrument breaks in your hands? Is it merely a coincidence, a result of wear and tear, or might there be something deeper happening, a message, perhaps, or an invitation to a new understanding of your spiritual journey? As we explore the deep spiritual significance of the Rosary in our lives, I want to share something special with you. Many of you have asked for more guidance on incorporating Padre Pio's spiritual wisdom into your daily lives. That's why we've created the e-book, The Spiritual Secrets of St. Padre Pio. This resource contains powerful prayers, reflections based on his teachings, and practical advice to strengthen your spirituality, just like we're discussing today about the Sacred Rosary. The e-book includes Padre Pio's special insights on prayer weapons, spiritual warfare, and maintaining devotion through difficult times. If today's message about your Rosary is touching your heart, this material will help you go even deeper. Simply click the link pinned in the comments to access this spiritual treasure that complements today's teaching perfectly. Now let's continue our exploration of what happens when your Rosary breaks and what Padre Pio would tell us about this significant moment. When a Rosary breaks in your hands, it's easy to feel a momentary panic. In that startling instant, many Catholics wonder, is this a bad omen? Have I done something wrong? But Padre Pio would see this moment through entirely different eyes. A broken Rosary can symbolize the intense spiritual battle you're engaged in. Just as a sword might crack under the pressure of combat, your Rosary breaking could indicate that your prayers have been particularly powerful, meeting resistance in the spiritual realm. The enemy doesn't want you praying, and the breaking might be evidence of the effectiveness of your devotion. Consider this. Objects of devotion that show wear are signs of a living, active faith. A pristine, untouched Rosary might actually be a sad symbol of prayers never offered, of spiritual weapons left unused. Padre Pio's own rosaries showed significant wear because they were constantly in use, constantly engaged in spiritual warfare. The breaking might also serve as a divine reminder that our faith journey needs regular renewal and care. Just as the physical string holding the beads together needs occasional replacement, our spiritual lives require consistent maintenance and attention. Nothing in our faith should be taken for granted. Thomas, a businessman from Boston, shared a profound experience with me. During the most difficult period of my life, when my company was failing and my marriage was strained, my Rosary broke during a desperate late-night prayer. Initially, I was devastated, seeing it as confirmation that even God had abandoned me. But something urged me to repair it rather than discard it. The act of carefully restringing those beads became a metaphor for rebuilding my life. By the time I finished the repair, I had gained clarity about steps needed to save both my business and my marriage. A broken Rosary might also symbolize a transition in your spiritual journey. Perhaps the prayers you've been offering have been answered, and it's time for a new chapter. Or perhaps God is calling you to a deeper, more mature understanding of prayer itself, moving beyond the physical aid to a more profound interior connection. Remember that in Catholic tradition, Apparent setbacks often conceal spiritual opportunities. What looks like destruction might actually be preparation for reconstruction. What seems like an ending might be the beginning of something new and beautiful in your relationship with God. No, absolutely not. When Padre Pio's rosary showed signs of wear or broke, he would never have simply discarded it as if it were ordinary trash. A blessed rosary is a sacramental, an object set apart for a sacred purpose that carries special spiritual significance. Throwing it away casually would be like dismissing the very grace it has helped channel into your life. The Catholic Church has specific teachings about how blessed objects should be treated. While they aren't sacraments themselves, sacramentals deserve reverence because of their holy purpose. They have been dedicated to God's service through a special blessing, becoming vessels that help dispose us to receive divine grace. Padre Pio, who experienced profound mystical encounters daily, understood the profound significance of sacramentals. He would have viewed a blessed rosary as more than just physical material. He would have recognized it as something that bridges the visible and invisible worlds. The beads that have accompanied your prayers have, in a sense, been sanctified by those very prayers rising to heaven. When we carelessly discard blessed objects, we risk adopting a disposable mentality toward the sacred. We live in a throwaway culture where everything is replaceable, temporary, and expendable. But our faith calls us to a different attitude. The things of God, even simple instruments of prayer, deserve honor and respect. If a rosary is truly beyond repair and must be disposed of, Catholic tradition offers proper methods, either respectful burning followed by burying the ashes, or simply burying the rosary in blessed ground, such as a garden. These methods honor the sacred purpose the object has served rather than treating it as mere garbage. But before considering disposal, we should always first consider restoration. Just as God never abandons us when we are damaged or broken, but instead works to heal and restore us, we should extend the same care to the instruments of our faith. The act of repairing a broken rosary carries profound spiritual significance that Padre Pio would have deeply appreciated. When you carefully gather the scattered beads and take the time to restring them, you're not just fixing a devotional object. You're making a powerful statement about your faith. Think about it, repairing your rosary parallels how God works in our broken lives. We all experience spiritual breaks, moments of weakness, doubt, or sin that leave us feeling disconnected from God. Yet the Lord never discards us. Instead, He carefully gathers every scattered piece of our hearts and, with infinite patience, restores us to wholeness. Padre Pio often said, "Pray, hope, and don't worry." This simple yet profound advice applies perfectly to a broken rosary. Rather than seeing the break as a catastrophe, we can approach it with hope, seeing it as an opportunity for renewal and deeper commitment to prayer. Consider the biblical parallel of the fishing nets. When Jesus called His first disciples, they were mending their nets, not throwing them away because they had torn during use. These fishermen understood that their livelihood depended on these tools, so they repaired them with care and dedication. Our spiritual life likewise depends on our prayer tools, and they deserve the same attention. Sister Claire, who worked at a monastery in Italy that Padre Pio often visited, once shared a moving story. An elderly woman came to Padre Pio in tears because her family heirloom rosary had broken, a rosary that had belonged to her grandmother, who had prayed it every day until her death. The woman felt it was an irreplaceable connection to her family's faith. Padre Pio took the broken rosary in his stigmatized hands, held it momentarily in prayer, and told her, "This breaking is not an ending, but a beginning. As you repair these beads, God will repair something within you that you didn't even know was broken." When we repair rather than replace, we practice the virtue of stewardship. We acknowledge that our possessions, especially those dedicated to sacred purposes, have value beyond their material worth. In our throwaway culture, this countercultural act becomes a small but significant rebellion against materialism. The very process of repairing a rosary can become a meditation in itself. Each bead carefully threaded back onto the string can represent a prayer, a thanksgiving, or a petition. The work of your hands becomes an extension of the work of your heart. When your rosary breaks, here's how to restore it with reverence and care. First, gather all the beads carefully. Each one represents prayers that have risen to heaven. Count them to ensure none are missing, especially if they scattered across the floor. Place them in a special container while you prepare for the repair. For a simple repair, you'll need new rosary cord or wire, which can be found at most Catholic supply stores or online. If your rosary has a metal chain connecting the beads, you may need small pliers and jump rings for the repair. Choose materials that will last. Remember, this is an investment in your spiritual journey. Before beginning the physical repair, consider saying a short prayer. Something as simple as, "Lord, as I repair this instrument of prayer, repair also any brokenness in my heart." This transforms the task from mere maintenance to a spiritual exercise. If restringing the rosary yourself, arrange the beads in proper order before beginning. The crucifix, followed by the 5 introductory beads, then the 5 decades with 10 beads each, separated by the larger Our Father beads. Thread them carefully, securing each bead properly so they don't slide too freely, but can still move when prayed. For rosaries with special sentimental or historical value, consider seeking professional help. Many Catholic gift shops offer repair services, and some religious orders specialize in rosary making and repair. They approach this work as a ministry, not just a service. Once repaired, it's beautiful to have your rosary blessed again. Though not strictly necessary, as the original blessing remains, a re-blessing becomes a moment of rededication, a fresh commitment to prayer. Ask your parish priest. Most are happy to perform this blessing after Mass. As a preventative measure, consider investing in a protective rosary case. Keeping your rosary in a dedicated pouch or box when not in use can prevent tangles and breakage. Remember, caring for your rosary is a reflection of your reverence for prayer itself. Padre Pio once said, "Satan fears the rosary like a wild lion fears a whip." This powerful statement reveals why your rosary might break at particular moments. The enemy doesn't want you praying, especially not with this powerful weapon that has defeated darkness throughout centuries of spiritual warfare. When your rosary breaks during intense prayer, consider the timing. Many report their rosaries breaking during prayers for particularly difficult situations, when interceding for a loved one's serious illness, during spiritual attacks, or when praying against entrenched evil. This is no coincidence. The breaking often occurs precisely when your prayers are most effective, when they're penetrating spiritual darkness with heaven's light. The rosary becomes more than beads and string in these moments. It transforms into a conduit of grace so powerful that the physical materials strain under the spiritual energy flowing through them. Like a wire carrying too much electrical current, the physical components can give way under the weight of spiritual power. Padre Pio understood this dynamic better than most. His own hands, marked with the stigmata, would bleed more profusely during spiritual battles. His body showed physical signs of the invisible warfare he engaged in. Similarly, your rosary's breaking might be the visible manifestation of an invisible battle being waged and won through your faithful prayers. This perspective transforms what seems like a mishap into a badge of honor. Rather than feeling discouraged when your rosary breaks, you might instead recognize it as confirmation that your prayers are making a real difference in the spiritual realm. The breaking becomes not a sign of failure, but of effectiveness. The rosary has been a central weapon in spiritual battles throughout church history. When Padre Pio spoke of it as his weapon, he stood in a long tradition of saints and ordinary believers who recognized its extraordinary power. Dating back to the 13th century, when tradition holds that Our Lady gave the rosary to St. Dominic, this prayer has been associated with decisive spiritual victories. The Battle of Lepanto in 1571 stands as perhaps the most famous example when Pope Saint Pius V called all of Europe to pray the Rosary, and against overwhelming odds, Christian forces achieved a crucial victory that many attribute directly to these prayers. Throughout history, countless saints have championed the Rosary. Saint Louis de Montfort called it the most powerful weapon to touch the heart of Jesus. St. Padre Pio himself would pray dozens of rosaries daily, understanding its effectiveness against evil. Pope Saint John Paul II, who called the Rosary his favorite prayer, added the luminous mysteries to help believers contemplate Christ's public ministry more deeply. When your rosary breaks, you're holding something that connects you not just to heaven, but to this rich historical tradition of faith. The very beads in your hands link you to millions of believers throughout the centuries who have fingered similar beads in times of joy, sorrow, warfare, peace, abundance, and scarcity. Consider that your broken rosary may have accompanied you through your own personal history. Perhaps it was given to you at a significant moment, blessed by a special priest, or present during crucial turning points in your life. These memories and moments of grace are embedded within those beads. When we repair rather than replace them, we honor not just the object, but the spiritual journey it represents. When your rosary breaks, remember Padre Pio's profound words. The rosary is the weapon for these times. This isn't just poetic language, it's a spiritual reality. A broken rosary isn't a sign of abandonment, but rather evidence of spiritual engagement. Like a sword that shows wear from battle, your rosary's condition testifies to prayers offered, tears shed, and graces received. Throughout this journey, we've discovered that a broken rosary carries deep symbolic meaning. It reminds us that our faith, like the string that holds the beads together, requires constant care and renewal. The breaking becomes an invitation, not to discard, but to restore with even greater reverence and commitment. Padre Pio would tell us that perseverance in prayer, especially when facing obstacles, is one of the greatest signs of love for God. To pray, hope, and don't worry, he often counseled. Repairing your rosary embodies this advice perfectly. It's an act of continued prayer, sustained hope, and trust rather than anxiety. The next time your rosary breaks, remember this is not a sign to abandon your prayers. Rather, it's a moment to deepen your commitment. Gather those scattered beads with loving care. See in each one the prayers that have already risen to heaven and the many more still waiting to be offered. Our faith is never about perfection. It's about persistence. It's not about flawless appearances, but faithful hearts. Your repaired rosary, with perhaps a slightly different cord or a bead that doesn't quite match the others, becomes a beautiful symbol of this truth. It shows that you valued your connection to prayer enough to restore it rather than replace it. If today's message has touched your heart, write in the comments, "My rosary, my treasure." Your comment will help spread this message to others who need this encouragement in their faith journey. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and share this video with someone who might be struggling with their prayer life. Your simple act of sharing could be exactly what someone needs to renew their devotion. We need your support to continue spreading these teachings about faith and devotion. If our videos have blessed you, please consider becoming a member of our channel. Your support allows us to create more content that strengthens faith and brings the timeless wisdom of saints like Padre Pio to today's world. May God bless you abundantly. May Our Lady wrap her mantle of protection around you. And may the wisdom of Padre Pio continue to guide you in your journey of faith. Remember his words, "The rosary is a gem of prayers, a treasury of heavenly graces. Blessed is the soul who keeps it close to their heart." Dear friends, every time we create these videos about Padre Pio's timeless wisdom, we're answering a calling to bring spiritual comfort to those who need it most. This ministry reaches thousands of souls, searching for answers in difficult times, but we can only continue with your heartfelt support. By becoming a member today, you're not just helping us create more content, you're joining a worldwide spiritual family united by faith and devotion. Your membership allows us to research deeper teachings, create more powerful videos, and reach those who desperately need these messages of hope. If our videos have touched your heart, please consider hitting that membership button below. Every like helps, every share extends our reach, but your membership sustains this mission in a special way. Together, we're building something beautiful in this digital world, a beacon of faith that Padre Pio himself would surely bless. Join our spiritual family today, and let's continue this sacred journey together. Have you ever felt a strange heaviness in your home? That inexplicable sensation when you walk into a room and something just doesn't feel right. Or perhaps you've experienced those nights when sleep won't come because an unsettling presence seems to linger in the darkness. These aren't merely coincidences or overactive imagination. In the spiritual realm, battles are constantly being waged around us, often without our awareness. As St. Paul reminds us in Ephesians 6:12, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." This scripture isn't meant to frighten us, but to awaken us to a reality that many modern Catholics have forgotten, the reality of spiritual warfare. Today, I'm going to share with you the wisdom of one of the greatest spiritual warriors the Church has ever known, Padre Pio, a man who not only believed in spiritual warfare, but experienced it firsthand throughout his life. The physical attacks he endured, the night battles against demonic forces, and the wounds of Christ he bore on his body, all testify to his profound understanding of the invisible war surrounding us. If you've been feeling spiritually vulnerable lately, if unexplained obstacles keep appearing in your path to holiness, or if your family seems under attack in ways you can't quite explain, then this message is specifically for you. Padre Pio has left us a spiritual inheritance, 4 powerful sacramentals that form a shield of divine protection. When used with faith and proper understanding, these sacred objects become channels of God's grace in our daily battles. But before I reveal them, I want you to type in the comments, "Padre Pio, strengthen my spiritual armor." This simple act of faith declares your intention to take your spiritual protection seriously from this moment forward. Do this now, and then stay with me until the end, because the 4th sacramental Padre Pio recommended is perhaps the most powerful of all. Yet many Catholics today have forgotten how to use it effectively. The life of Padre Pio reads like a spiritual battlefield report. From his earliest years, this humble Capuchin friar experienced extraordinary phenomena that modern minds often struggle to comprehend. Fellow friars would hear strange noises coming from his cell at night, sounds of struggle, furniture moving, and sometimes even cries of pain. When questioned, Padre Pio would reluctantly admit that these were battles with demonic forces trying to prevent his prayers and spiritual work. One friar recounted, "We would hear terrible noises from his room, as if someone was being murdered. The next morning, Padre Pio's cell would be in complete disarray, furniture overturned, and sometimes we would find him exhausted and bruised." Why am I telling you this? Because Padre Pio wasn't experiencing these attacks due to any weakness or sin. On the contrary, it was precisely his holiness and powerful ministry that made him a target, and the same principle applies to you. Often, the closer you draw to God, the more opposition you may face. When you decide to strengthen your prayer life, reconnect with the sacraments, or lead your family in faith, you may find unusual obstacles suddenly appearing. Have you noticed any of these signs in your own life? Persistent negative thoughts that seem to come from nowhere. Unusual tension in previously peaceful relationships. Sudden health issues that doctors can't explain. Overwhelming feelings of discouragement whenever you try to pray. Nightmares that leave you feeling drained. These can be indicators of spiritual attack, not merely coincidences or bad luck. But here's the good news. You don't have to face these battles unarmed or alone. The Church, in her wisdom, has provided us with powerful spiritual tools. sacramentals that connect us to divine protection. And Padre Pio, who knew spiritual warfare better than most, particularly recommended 4 of these sacramentals for everyday protection. It's important to clarify something before we continue. Sacramentals are not magical amulets. Their power doesn't lie in the objects themselves, but in the faith with which we use them and the blessing of the Church upon them. They're visible signs that connect us to invisible grace. They remind us of God's protection and help us focus our faith. With that understanding firmly in place, let's explore the first powerful sacramental that Padre Pio recommended. The first sacramental is the miraculous medal. Maybe you've seen it, a simple oval medal depicting Our Lady standing on a globe, with the prayer, O Mary, conceived without sin, pray for us who have recourse to thee, encircling the image. But do you know its extraordinary origins and power? In 1830, the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to a humble novice named Catherine Labouré in Paris. During this apparition, Mary showed Catherine the design for what would become known as the miraculous medal. Our Lady promised all who wear it will receive great graces, especially if they wear it around the neck. Soon after the medals were struck and distributed, accounts of conversions, healings, and protections began pouring in from around the world, so many that people started calling it miraculous. Padre Pio had a profound devotion to this medal. Witnesses often noted that even amid the most intense spiritual attacks, he would clutch his miraculous medal and turn to Mary for protection. He once told a spiritual daughter, "When the enemy comes against you with full force, the medal becomes a shield that he cannot penetrate." Let me share with you one powerful testimony of the miraculous medal's protection. Elizabeth, a mother of 3 from Boston, wrote to me recently about her experience. "My teenage son started changing dramatically after making new friends at school. He became withdrawn, angry, and I discovered occult symbols in his room. I was terrified and didn't know what to do. My priest suggested that I get a blessed miraculous medal and pray for my son. Though I couldn't get him to wear it, I placed it discreetly in his room and began praying the Memorare daily. Within weeks, I noticed subtle changes. He started avoiding those troubling friends and even asked if we could start going to Mass again as a family. When I finally told him about the medal months later, he admitted that he had been feeling a peaceful presence in his room that helped him think clearly again. This story illustrates exactly what Padre Pio understood. The miraculous medal doesn't work through superstition, but through Mary's powerful intercession when we approach it with genuine faith. To use the miraculous medal effectively, have it blessed by a priest if possible. Wear it reverently around your neck or carry it with you. When temptations or spiritual attacks come, hold the medal and pray, "O Mary, conceived without sin, pray for us who have recourse to thee." The medal serves as a constant reminder of Mary's protective presence in your life. Many Catholics don't realize that the back of the medal is equally powerful, featuring an M intertwined with a cross and surrounded by 12 stars representing the apostles. This symbolism reminds us that Mary always points us to Jesus and stands with the Church against the powers of darkness. This medal isn't just decorative jewelry, it's a powerful instrument of grace when used with faith. Now let's move on to the second sacramental that Padre Pio highly recommended for spiritual protection. The brown scapular of Our Lady of Mount Carmel holds a special place among Catholic sacramentals. Unlike a medal that you wear, the scapular consists of 2 small pieces of brown wool connected by strings, worn over the shoulders with one piece hanging on your chest and the other on your back. Its origins date back to July 16th, 1251, when Our Lady appeared to St. Simon Stock, the head of the Carmelite order during a time of great persecution. In this apparition, Mary handed him the brown scapular with an extraordinary promise: "Whosoever dies clothed in this shall never suffer eternal fire." This became known as the scapular promise. a sign of Mary's special protection over those devoted to her, particularly at the hour of death. Padre Pio wore the brown scapular throughout his religious life. Even with the stigmata causing him constant pain, he never removed this sign of his consecration to Mary. When asked about its importance, he would often say, "The scapula is a safeguard in danger, a sign of salvation, a protection in every hazard, and a pledge of peace and special protection until the end of time." What many don't realize is that wearing the scapula isn't merely a passive devotion. It represents a covenant relationship with Mary. When you wear it faithfully, you're essentially saying, "I belong to Mary, and Mary belongs to me." This spiritual bond creates a channel of grace and protection that the enemy finds difficult to penetrate. For the brown scapula to truly protect you, it should be properly blessed and imposed by a priest using the official ritual of the Church. Once enrolled in the scapular confraternity, you're called to lead a life consistent with Marian devotion, frequent prayer, regular reception of the sacraments, and striving for purity of heart. The scapula isn't a guarantee of salvation, regardless of how you live. Rather, it's Mary's pledge to intercede powerfully for those who honor her through this devotion. Many Catholics today opt for a scapular medal for practical reasons, which the Church permits. However, Padre Pio always recommended the traditional wool scapula when possible, noting that the physical connection to this centuries-old tradition carries special graces. Before we move to our third sacramental, I want to share something special with you. If you're seeking to deepen your spiritual protection and understanding of these powerful sacramentals, I've created a special ebook called The Spiritual Secrets of St. Padre Pio. This resource contains powerful prayers, reflections based on his teachings, and practical advice to strengthen your spirituality. You'll find the link in the comments section below. This material isn't just information, it's a spiritual companion that can transform your daily walk with God and strengthen your spiritual armor. Now let's continue with the third powerful sacramental recommended by Padre Pio. Among all Catholic medals, the Saint Benedict medal stands out for its specific power against evil. This isn't just tradition or pious belief. Countless exorcists throughout church history have attested to its extraordinary efficacy in spiritual warfare. Padre Pio often kept this medal close, especially when confronting cases of demonic influence. What makes this medal so unique is the series of Latin initials engraved upon it, which form a powerful prayer of exorcism. Around the edge of the medal are the letters VRSNSMV, which stand for Vade retro Satana, nunquam suade mihi vana. Begone Satan, never tempt me with your vanities, continuing with SMQLIV. Beatiard meaning que sunt mala quae libus, ipse venena bibus. The cup you offer is evil, drink the poison yourself. The front of the medal features Saint Benedict holding his rule in one hand and a cross in the other. The reverse shows a cross with the letters CSPB, Crux Sancti Patris Benedicti, or the cross of the Holy Father Benedict. Each element of this medal carries spiritual significance and power when used with faith. Padre Pio particularly valued this medal for home protection. He advised placing Blessed Saint Benedict medals at the entrances of homes, under doormats, or even burying them in the four corners of property. This wasn't superstition, but a recognition that physical spaces can be affected by spiritual realities. The medal serves as a declaration that this space is under divine protection. The effectiveness of the Saint Benedict medal is demonstrated in this remarkable testimony from a parish priest I know well. A family in my parish was experiencing frightening disturbances in their home, objects moving inexplicably, cold spots, and their children having terrible nightmares. After blessing their home without lasting results, I gave them several Blessed Saint Benedict medals to place above doorways and in bedrooms. The father was skeptical, but followed my advice. Within days, the atmosphere in the home completely changed. The children began sleeping peacefully, and the sense of oppression lifted. Months later, during renovations, they discovered that the previous owner had hidden occult objects in a wall cavity. The St. Benedict medals had been providing protection even before they found the source of the disturbance. To use this medal effectively, have it properly blessed by a priest, ideally with the special blessing specifically for the St. Benedict medal found in the Roman ritual. You can wear it, carry it in your pocket, place it in your home, or attach it to your rosary. During times of spiritual attack or temptation, hold the medal and pray. May the Holy Cross be my light. May the dragon never be my guide. The power of this medal doesn't come from the object itself, but from the prayer of the Church and your faith in God's protection. It serves as a constant reminder that Christ has already defeated the enemy, and through baptism, you share in that victory. This understanding brings us naturally to our fourth and perhaps most fundamental sacramental. The fourth sacramental Padre Pio recommended might seem obvious, yet its power is often overlooked in modern Catholic life. The crucifix. Not just a cross, but specifically the image of Christ crucified. While many homes have decorative crosses, Padre Pio insisted on the importance of having blessed crucifixes, Christ's sacrificial body depicted on the cross, prominently displayed. The crucifix is more than a religious symbol. It is the ultimate sign of Christ's victory over sin, death, and the devil. As St. Paul declares in Colossians 2:15, having disarmed the powers and authorities, he made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them by the cross. This is why the crucifix has traditionally been the primary tool in exorcisms and blessings. Padre Pio's relationship with the crucifix was profound and intimate. During his famous battles with demonic forces, witnesses often reported seeing him clutching his crucifix tightly. He once confided to a fellow friar, "When the enemy rages around me, I hold fast to this sign of our redemption, and he flees from what defeated him." This wasn't merely symbolic for Padre Pio. His very body bore the wounds of Christ through the stigmata, making him a living crucifix. The crucifix serves multiple spiritual purposes in our lives. First, it's a powerful weapon against temptation. When Padre Pio counseled people struggling with recurring sins, he would often prescribe this simple practice. Place a blessed crucifix where you can see it during moments of temptation. Look upon the price Christ paid for that sin and ask yourself if it's worth crucifying him again. Second, the crucifix is a source of healing grace. Padre Pio would frequently press his crucifix to the afflicted areas of the sick who came to him, many of whom reported immediate relief. While we may not have Padre Pio's exceptional gifts, we can still apply our blessed crucifixes to areas of physical or spiritual pain, trusting in Christ's healing power. Finally, the crucifix serves as a powerful focal point for prayer, especially during spiritual attacks. When negative thoughts, fears, or temptations assail you, Padre Pio recommended holding a crucifix and praying simply, "By your cross and resurrection, you have redeemed the world. Lord Jesus, save me." To implement this sacramental in your life, place blessed crucifixes in prominent locations throughout your home, especially in bedrooms and common areas. Many traditional Catholic families maintain the practice of having a crucifix above every doorway, signifying that Christ is Lord of each threshold. Keep a small crucifix in your pocket or purse for spiritual protection throughout the day. And most importantly, develop the habit of gazing upon the crucifix during your prayer time, contemplating the depth of Christ's love and sacrifice. Now that we've explored these 4 powerful sacramentals, you might be wondering how to incorporate them effectively into your daily life. Padre Pio offered practical wisdom on this subject as well, emphasizing that these sacramentals work together as a unified system of protection. First, I'd remember that these sacred objects derive their power from the blessing of the Church and your faith. Padre Pio was adamant about having all sacramentals properly blessed by a priest. This isn't merely a formality, it's an invocation of the Church's authority and prayer over these objects, setting them apart for sacred use. Second, develop simple habits that incorporate these sacramentals into your daily routine. Padre Pio suggested kissing your crucifix first thing in the morning and last thing at night. Touch your miraculous medal when facing decisions or challenges throughout the day. Be conscious of your brown scapula as a reminder of Mary's constant presence. These small gestures transform these sacramentals from passive objects into active reminders of God's protection. Third, pair these physical sacramentals with consistent prayer. Padre Pio often said, "The sacramentals prepare the soul for the reception of grace, but prayer opens the heart to receive it." A simple practice might include making the sign of the cross with your crucifix while praying a brief morning offering, touching your miraculous medal while praying a memorare during moments of temptation, or holding your St. Benedict medal while praying the prayer to St. Michael when you sense spiritual opposition. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, remember that these sacramentals are meant to support, not replace, a full sacramental life. Padre Pio emphasized that the most powerful protection comes through regular confession, devout reception of the Eucharist, and a consistent prayer life. The sacramentals work most effectively when they're part of a comprehensive Catholic spiritual practice. Some people might question or even ridicule your use of these sacramentals, dismissing them as superstitious. Padre Pio addressed this concern directly. There is nothing superstitious about blessed objects when used with the mind of the Church. They are visible channels of invisible grace, tangible reminders of spiritual realities. In a world that increasingly recognizes only what can be seen and measured, these sacramentals boldly affirm the reality of the unseen spiritual realm. As we conclude our exploration of these four powerful sacramentals, the miraculous medal, the brown scapula, the St. Benedict medal, and the crucifix, I invite you to reflect on Padre Pio's profound words. The spiritual life is a battle and not a bed of roses. These sacramentals aren't luxury items for the spiritually elite. They're essential equipment for every Catholic navigating today's spiritually challenging landscape. The enemies of our souls are real, but as Padre Pio reminded his spiritual children, pray, hope, and don't worry. With these sacred tools of protection, combined with a sincere faith and regular sacramental life, you have everything needed to stand firm against any spiritual attack. I encourage you today to take concrete steps toward implementing these sacramentals in your life. Perhaps you already use some of them, but could be more intentional in your approach. Or maybe this is all new information that opens up a dimension of Catholic faith you hadn't explored before. Wherever you find yourself, I invite you to commit to at least one specific action based on what you've learned today. If these teachings from Padre Pio have touched your heart, please write "Protected by Faith" in the comments below. Your comment not only helps this message reach more souls who need spiritual protection, but also becomes your personal declaration of faith in the protective power of these sacred traditions. Dear friends, each video we share is a seed of faith we plant together. If these teachings of Padre Pio have touched your heart, we need you to continue this spiritual mission. With a simple like, you help this message reach more souls thirsting for protection. By sharing this video, you extend God's hand to those who need it most. And if you want to be an integral part of our spiritual family, become a channel member. Every small support allows us to continue being a beacon of light in these challenging times. Your contribution isn't just for us, but for all those who, through these messages, find hope and strength in their journey with God. Together, we keep the flame of our saints' teachings alive,